Live from the KDAL studios at Lake and Superior Street in downtown Duluth, it stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award winner Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Featuring cool people from all walks of life. Check out previous show podcasts at KDAL610.com. The phone lines are open at 218-722-0839. Now, here's Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa. I got my wingman, Chris Allen, with me, as I do every week. It's just a gorgeous day in the Zenith City by the unsalted sea. The sun is out, and it's warm, and it's time to mow the lawn and get to the dog park today.
Oh, mow the lawn part is the part that I didn't hear.
I mowed it a little bit last week, and it's just like, wow, got to mow it again.
Same here. We did it late in the week, and already it's like, what?
Oh, yeah, and it's like, it's Dandelion City at my place.
I heard Tarzan swinging around in my front yard.
But what do we do on Stars Over the Prairie? We interview stars, people that are going to be stars, people that used to be stars, people that don't want to be stars, or people that just go outside and look at the stars in the nighttime. Occasionally they're holding a cold one. We are broadcasting at KDAL 610 AM 103.9 FM, 237 somersaults down the hill from Bob Dylan's childhood home.
You must have fell over when you went for the Bob Dylan party, because it used to be 236.
Well, that's the universe is expanding.
Okay.
And actually, our first guest today for most of the first hour is a fellow that I met about 4 years ago. He was playing the Dylan birthday party at 517 3rd Avenue, right up the hill from us, a guy named Greg Tabertzi. We're excited to have Greg in. We're going to chat and get to know each other, and he's also going to play some of his great songs. In the second hour, we have a woman that used to be on KDAL in the early and mid-'70s, Sylvia Burgess Toffness. She is now living in Wisconsin. She has a radio show every Saturday morning from 9 to 9:30. We're going to talk about that. But she is an herbal specialist. She runs a place called Herbal Safari, where you can discover and use helpful plants in your wellness journey. And her radio show is called Deep Roots Radio. We've had a lot of connections. I used to take classical guitar lessons from her then husband, Robert Wander, and she is also the mother of the great rapper, writer, broadcaster, and very cool woman, Dessa Darling. So we're going to chat about all kinds of stuff with Sylvia in the second hour. Boy, Chris, I saw a wonderful show on Wednesday.
Yeah?
My hero, Leo Kottke, played at the North Shore Theater.
I know, and I couldn't go.
Oh, man, it was so good. If I would have known that, I did have an extra ticket, but what I did, I invited a guy named Jake Benson, who runs the Proctor Journal. I got turned on to Leo Kottke in about 1972 by a really great guitar player from Eveleth, Minnesota, not with us anymore, a guy named Mike Doyle. His name was Dudley, and it was a cool cat, man. He was a few years older than me. He used to drive around in a hearse. He played in a rock band. He had an old black hearse, and used to wear a top hat, just a real great countercultural character. Anyway, he turned me on to Leo. I had been playing guitar for several years as a kid and was just entranced by that beautiful fingerstyle on that steel string guitar. So we went down with the guests that I invited on Wednesday. Jake Benson, Dudley, and I drove down to the Guthrie Theater. I think it was December 22. It was a two-nighter for Leo. It was December 22nd and 23rd, I believe, because they recorded a record there that night called My Feet Are Smiling. And Leo played the first set solo, and then brought out Billy Berg on drums, Hibbing native, and Billy Peterson on bass for the second set, and it was overwhelming. Just a few months later, both Bills ended up playing on Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. I had heard those guys because I kept my ear to the ground with Minneapolis musicians. But that was the night, Chris, I walked out of there after such an amazing, powerful experience at the Guthrie Theater with the magic of the lighting and the beautiful, pristine acoustics and the wonderful sold-out crowd. And, of course, Leo's artistry. I walked out that night at about 17 years old, and I said, that's what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to become a professional musician, and my only goal in life at that time was to someday play the Guthrie Theater.
Wow. How does that feel for you when you get to do, you dream about doing something and playing somewhere? I dreamed of, my thing was Grandma's Marathon. That was one of my goals. I wanted to play that big top and got to, but how did it feel for you?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I ended up playing the Guthrie Theater 7 or 8 times.
Wow.
The very first time my band Cats and the Stars and I opened up for the great Ry Cooder and his band.
Wow.
And we were huge Ry Cooder fans. Our guys back then were Ry Cooder, David Bromberg, John Hammond, Bonnie Raitt.
Wow.
And, of course, J.J. Cale, Leon Russell. But we opened up for J.J. then, and I think it was 83. I put my first record out, Paper Tigers, in 84, and I actually did my very first gig at the North Shore Theater under my own name, opening up for Taj Mahal. So the history of my life and my performance career was all kind of tied into seeing Leo again with Jake Benson.
Yeah.
But I had the honor and pleasure of opening up for musicians like at the Guthrie, Lyle Lovett, Roseanne Cash, J.J. Cale, the Neville Brothers.
Wow.
White guy over here, white Finlander with the guitar, solo act, opening up for the world's greatest black band. And I was just, I love them still listen to their music. And who else did I? Roseanne Cash.
I had a great conversation with Roseanne Cash. I was waiting tables, and she was in the very back and didn't want to be recognized. And I just walked up to her very quietly, and I said, "It's nice to meet you." And then she said, "Sit down." And my boss came over and said, "You're not allowed to sit with the customers." And Roseanne said, "Shut up."
Taken after her father, Johnny Cash, taking no bull from anybody.
Yep.
She was phenomenal. She said, when I got done playing, she said, "Oh, I just loved your songs." And that couldn't have made me feel better. When I was getting ready to leave Minneapolis, I did my farewell show, January 31st, 1994, with a 10-piece band.
Wow.
And put it out on a record that following fall called Mississippi Farewell. I ended up not leaving. My mother was sick. She had leukemia. And I took all the money I made from the show to record it, which I'm really glad I did because the band was really on fire that night. My mother passed. That was the last time my mother saw me play. But really, I think my mother thought that night was, she was lifelong my biggest supporter. She used to drive me to gigs when I was 12 years old to my little talent shows and church basements that I'd play with my buddy Chuck Christensen and Paul and Christian. And then to finally see me sell out the Guthrie Theater with a 10-piece band, I think she knew my work here is done.
Yep.
She passed away just a few months later on May 23rd. At her funeral, we had some friends that had an island across from us at Lake Vermilion. Billy Fiata was my mother's very good friends. And she was at the concert, and she took pictures. And at my mother's funeral that June, she gave me a photo that she took. It was after the gig in the green room at the Guthrie. And it's just a picture of my mother hugging me. You see the back of my head and my mother's face. And the look on my mother's face was the look of the happiest mother in the world.
Yeah.
I got it hanging right next to my bed. I look at it every night before I go to bed. Then, of course, I say a little prayer for my mom and dad, my family and friends that have passed on, and people that need help. And I send all my prayers and good vibes, and other friends of mine that are in the great beyond, hoping, enjoying each other's company.
I have to point out something. You're just like every other artist. They have their farewell, and they don't really have the farewell.
Well, the problem was I got a ton of press on it, and the press was really nice to me. I was doing radio, Minneapolis Star Tribune, St. Paul Pioneer Press. I spent all my money, and so I couldn't play anymore. That was my farewell show. So I just, and then really I went into what I've looked back now after Mom died, into a clinical depression. And I had just enough money to squeak by in the apartment. I've lived at 1818 LaSalle, this beautiful old mansion that Sumner McKnight from the McKnight Foundation started. And then Christmas Eve day, I had just a little less than $100 to go up to the range for Christmas with the family, drive an old beater car, and then locked my keys in the car, so that took $60. And anyway, it was and first Christmas without Mom. Anybody that loves their parents know what it's like when those significant, or anybody in your family that passes away, those first holidays, that first year of holidays and anniversaries and birthday parties. When that person's not there, what a great hole that leaves in one's life. But anyway, I had there was a letter on the coffee table when you came in this old mansion. I lived on the third floor of it was the ballroom at one point. And so the mailman would come in and just throw everybody's mail, all the renters there, on this big old oak table. And I grabbed it and it said, Woody Guthrie Publications, New York City. What is this? And I opened it up, and it was a letter from Nora Guthrie, Woody's daughter, saying, who the hell are you? Somebody sent me a tape of yours, and I absolutely love your music. So that moment, I said, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to sell the guitar, and I'm going to move out to New York City and meet Nora Guthrie. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just funny how life works and fate intervenes. Well, today, if it's your birthday, this is your horoscope, you Gemini. If you were born on May 31st, you're a regular James Bond. There's something about you that is both alluring and terrifying. You have a special set of skills that are unmatched by any other. You're always seeking out a new challenge, whether this is at work, through extreme hobbies, or even in romantic relationships. Remember that not everything in life has to be difficult. Learn to relax a little bit and see how fun life can be when things are smooth sailing. I know you moved in with the gal. How's it smooth sailing with you, Chris Allen?
Yeah, it's going good.
Good. And you're living in Solon Springs.
I'm in Solon Springs, and we have a beautiful backyard just looking in trees. You can sit in the seat and just enjoy the view. Although there's Minnesota and Wisconsin have a lot of similarities, there's something about Wisconsin that I've always found incredibly beautiful and a tad mysterious. Yeah. And a lot of fishermen, and for some reason, everybody in Solon Springs owns a white truck. I haven't figured it out yet.
Why would you? I've never understood that people with white cars or white trucks. I mean, you got to go to the car wash twice as often.
Well, then again, too, I mean, your truck looks more rugged.
Oh,
if it's dirty all the time, then people go, wow, he must be a manly man.
Well, my Outback looks mighty rugged today.
See, we're manly men.
And speaking of Wisconsin, I'm really looking forward to speak with Sylvia Burgess Toffness about everything she's got going on in Wisconsin and more. We've got so many connections, and a fellow by the name of Ethan Hart, who worked at KDAL. When I moved up here and I got the gig, thanks to my friend Tracy Lundeen here at KDL Radio, said, you got to get a hold of Sylvia. She used to be there. So I'm really anxious to talk about her life story. She was born in the Bronx, ended up here, and she has got a lot going on. A lot of heavy hitters were born on this day, Chris. Walt Whitman was born in 1819 in West Hills, New York. Tracy wrote The Great Leaves of Grass, considered one of the great American poets. He was also a nurse during the Civil War, and passed away in 1892. Now, one of our radio forebearers, Chris, a little bit before our time, but Fred Allen from the Fred Allen Show, American comedian. Back when radio was king, man.
Yeah.
The 30s and 40s. There was no stinking computers or cell phones or televisions.
You got all your information through the paper and the radio, and mostly the radio.
Yeah. You know, my dad grew up only child on a farm in Gore, Minnesota, and he used to love listening to the New York Yankees. That was his thing. That was his jam. And he was a huge Joe DiMaggio fan. We went out for a family trip to San Francisco and then to Hawaii. And in 1970, over the New Year's holiday, Christmas, New Year's, and we went to Fisherman's Wharf to Joe DiMaggio's restaurant. We got in just a little after noon. There was the bartender and a very well-dressed man playing dice with the bartender at the bar, and just my dad, myself, my brother John. We sit down, and the waitress comes out, and we order, and we look up. It is the man, Joe DiMaggio, playing dice at the bar. So my dad, he had one of those little Instamatic cameras. We got a picture of Mr. DiMaggio in the middle and young Paul and John Metsa on each side. And Dad was a little shaken when he took the picture. So when we got it back, you can see there's a nice tip of his finger in the right lower hand part of the picture. And Joe was so nice. He signed he had a beautiful menu, and it was on Fisherman's Wharf, so it was kind of a painting of the restaurant on Fisherman's Wharf, and he signed it, and I've got that in a safety deposit box.
Yeah.
One of my nephews tried to, after my dad died, when we were going through his stuff, figure out who gets what. One of my nephews wanted to get his hands on that. I said, no, that's going to Uncle Paul.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, who else is born today? Clint Eastwood is 95 years old.
Wow.
Born in San Francisco.
Still acting, too, and directing.
I've got a Eastwood for mayor button when he ran for mayor of Carmel. I believe he actually won that. And was the mayor of Carmel. Just what's your, of course, you know, you're a little younger than me, but did you grow up watching Rawhide or reruns of Rawhide?
Oh, yeah.
When Rowdy Yates.
Yeah.
That's how Clinton came into the American consciousness. Do you have any particular favorite Clint Eastwood films? Of course, you got Dirty Harry.
Oh gosh, I mean, I wasn't so much into his action stuff. I liked The Bridges of Madison County. I thought that
was beautiful.
It was the first time I'd seen him have feelings and really stretch as an actor. And I know he did other things where he had to stretch, but I mostly knew him as Dirty Harry. And then to see this come out, it was like, wow.
Did you see Gran Torino, the movie that came out about 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the guy that wrote that, I don't remember his name, but he was living in Northeast Minneapolis, and he wrote that whole script at Grumpy's Bar on the corner of Northeast 22nd Avenue and 4th Street. Grumpy's was my jam. Patois, the guy that owns it, who also started Amphibian Reptile Records, runs the bar, and it was greatest happy hour on Fridays. Pat gets, even in the winter, gets the cooker going in the backyard, and his barbecue and this and that, all locally owned and growing stuff. And then he also was one of the first bars in the Twin Cities that really started to introduce all of the different beers from Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Okay.
They first got on tap there at Grumpy's. But when you listen closely to Clint Eastwood's accent in Gran Torino, you've heard it before if you lived in Northeast Minneapolis, because the whole take on his persona and the way he spoke was a Polish guy from Northeast Minneapolis. And the guy still stops in every now and then, but I love that movie. I didn't expect it, and I didn't expect I only lived 10 blocks from Grumpy, so I didn't expect that kind of that neighborhood,
that background
connection to it.
Yeah.
And of course, Who can forget Broadway Joe Namath? Turning 82 years old today. Was born in 1943 in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, and was the Super Bowl MVP with the New York Jets, second year of the Super Bowl in 1969. I would walk by, I think he had a restaurant in the theater district off Times Square on 42nd Street called Broadway Joe's. Not sure if it was still there, but I don't know if Broadway Joe's still rocking the big fur coats anymore. But,
he does from time to time, but not like he used to. Now it's more of a costume than anything.
And isn't he a reverse mortgage guy too?
Reverse mortgage, and I think he also does senior insurance now.
Yeah.
And he does all that stuff.
I buy from Joe.
Yeah. I think that's why they hire him. I bet you he's feeling like a fool letting Aaron Rodgers use his number.
Oh, don't get me started on Aaron Rodgers. Not a big fan. Anyway, but I am a big fan of our guest, Greg Tiburzi. First time I saw Greg, he was playing. I had just was moving up to Duluth. I'd eventually live on the first floor of Bob Dylan's childhood home, which, as we mentioned, is 236 or 37 somersaults up the hill from where we're broadcasting.
Depending on how tall you are.
Depending on how tall you are. And I believe he's played every birthday party on that porch. And I just saw him last week, a week ago today, and I hung out, and the guy that's living there now, a guy named Tracy's a very nice guy. So he gave me a little tour of my old crib, and so when Greg was packing up his guitar, I said, Greg, I've been talking to him for 4 years trying to get you on the show. What are you doing next week? He goes, I'm going to be on your show, and he is. Greg, thanks for coming in today with that beautiful Gibson guitar.
Absolutely, yeah, and my name, Tiburzi, it sounded like, when you said it sounded like to bird seed, which is, I haven't heard that one yet, but my grandfather came from Sarnano in Italy.
Okay.
And we pronounce it Tiburzi, but I had a drumming instructor down in Iowa, and he told me, oh, Tiburzi, no, you should pronounce it like the Italians, Tiburzi.
Yeah.
So from now on, you can call me Greg Tiburzi.
Tiburzi.
Yeah, there you go.
Try that, Chris.
I can't do it, so I'm sorry. I'm going to stick with the old one.
You're the man of a million voices. Well, Greg, I really enjoyed your set on the Dylan porch last week. Are you a Duluth native?
No, I'm from Hibbing, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I'm from Hibbing. I actually grew up probably a mile as a crow flies from where Dylan grew up. I grew up near Brooklyn, a block from Brooklyn. So, in fact, there was a golf course right in our backyard, and we would actually scramble over the train tracks, and we were on the third tee off, and we would look to see if anybody was coming down the second. If nobody was, we'd just scooch on and finish the nine, and try to skip by the clubhouse to get on the first, so we didn't have to pay. How
was your golf game?
Terrible. I haven't picked up my clubs for years. I never got very good. In fact, I enjoy finding golf balls around the course. That was our pastime in Hibbing. We'd go and we'd find balls.
I think a lot of young kids that live by golf courses had that hobby in common.
Yeah.
We used to do that at growing up on Lake Vermilion in the summertime. We used to go to the Cook Golf Course, which is a little 9-hole course. And after they closed, Brother John and myself, a couple of friends, would go with a couple plastic bags because you had to get it. You just don't. They're just not sitting there on the dry grass. You got to get wet.
Sometimes you can just see part of them under the mud. And do you remember that? And you'd have to dig them out, and then you'd wash them in the little washers they had on all the tee-offs.
I love those washers.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about that that says you think you're getting something done when you're polishing the golf ball.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what year did you graduate Hibbing High?
78.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I graduated in 78 from Hibbing.
When did you start playing guitar?
Probably about the same, probably a year before that or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had this beautiful old guitar, this old Mexican job that my girlfriend gave me in high school, and we had it for years. And then I give my wife crap about it to this day. I think she put her knee through it when she was actually scrambling around the back of the truck one year. And we finally said, well, that's the end of the yield, but we'll have to get rid of that and get another guitar. So that was I had that one for a while. It was probably a $10 Mexican.
I thought this was going to go. She just wanted to kind of get rid of that whole you playing guitar part of her life.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, good. What now? Back then, I used to hitchhike over to Hibbing and go stand in front of 2425 and 7th Avenue, look at Dylan's house, and look at that door, and go, the young man that walked out of that door is out there changing American culture. And then when I got a little older, a couple of buddies and I would hitchhike over, and then when we got to be 16, we had our licenses so we could drive, and we used to chase the women in the Chisholm Hibbing area.
Oh, sure.
In fact, we went to more than one dance at the Hibbing Armory where Dylan played back in the day with his band, the Golden Chords. Mm-hmm. But Hibbing, really a historic town.
Yeah, it really is. And in fact, the drummer for the Golden Chords is Leroy Hoikala.
Yeah.
Is actually a good friend of my. We all have brushes with Dylan. Good friends with my brother Tom's.
Is Leroy still with us?
No, he's not. He passed away a few years ago. And I always tried to get him when I would do the Dylan Days songwriter competition in Hibbing. I'd always tried to get him to drum behind me. He said, no, he's too crippled up from the mines. But I thought, what a beautiful thing that would have been to get him to drum behind me. And he was the nicest guy.
I interviewed him about when I first started my radio show, Wall of Power Radio Hour on AM 950 Minneapolis. We were celebrating Dylan birthday week, and I got him and did about a 15-minute interview that we replayed last week.
Oh, yeah.
He couldn't have been a nicer guy.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? He went on to work at the Pentagon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went on to work at the Pentagon. And underground, he was doing something, I don't know exactly what the gig was, but I said, man, only in America can you go from being Bob Dylan's drummer in high school to working at the Pentagon.
Right.
That's a kind of twisted American
That's a prerequisite, isn't it?
Most guys, you got to work at the Pentagon first and then work for Dylan.
Oh, gotcha.
That's how twisted that guy's career is.
Right.
Hey, why don't I know besides you've got an arsenal full of Dylan songs, but we want to hear some songs by Greg Tabertzi today.
That's pretty good.
What are we going to hear?
This is off my record. I did a record recently, and I'm happy to announce it's going to be touring the Iron Range libraries next November.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's called Songs of Misabi, and I'll just read my little intro here. For many years, the miners on the Iron Range were at the company's sole command. They were overworked, underpaid, and employed in dangerous conditions. Not until they were able to organize and gain power with the unions did men of different nationalities come together under a common cause. This song I'm going to be playing is a tale of a company foreman with a strong tie to his fellow employees who are busy doing the dirty work, called Hell and High Water. So this is a song from my album, Songs of Misabi.
Beautiful. I'm anxious to hear it.
I've done some hard digging. I've drilled and I blasted. I ran a power shovel. I drove a Euclid and a plow. I took pride in my work with the fellows there with me. I blew off some steam in the taverns of town. For 26 years, I worked like a dog. I kept to myself. They liked what they found. And then they made me a foreman, and I was told to do nothing but drive around pointing fingers and boss men around. But come hell or high water, I'll stand by the worker and band with my brothers, whatever the deed. And when the Lord comes a-calling, we'll all be together, pass through the gates of eternity. When 2 trains pinned my old friend like a nut in a cracker, I talked in a whisper. I tried keeping him calm till the ambulance arrived and they pulled them cars apart. The life left his body and ran out on the ground. I watched while a track gang got buried alive as the timbers and the rocks came crumbling on down. Well, I'd give my whole life to be back in there with them instead of out here with the guilt I've been hauling around. Come hell or high water, I'll stand by the worker and band with my brothers, whatever the deed. And when the Lord comes a-calling, we'll all be together to pass through the gates of eternity. And when I retired, I got me a pension. I bought up some land to take the dead trees. I saw them and I limb 'em, chop 'em up and split 'em, and give them away to my brothers in need. Come hell or high water, I'll stand by the worker and band with my brothers, whatever the deed. And when the Lord comes a-calling, we'll all be together to pass through the gates of eternity, to pass through them pearly gates of eternity. Come hell or high water.
Very nice, Greg Traversi. I want to talk about the whole concept and idea behind that song, but we got to keep the show on the air with the help of our advertisers. And we want to thank everybody that does that to keep Stars of the Prairie coming to you weekly from 10 a.m. to noon. If you are a listener out there and you just want to, you don't have anything to advertise, but you want to support the show, I have a Venmo account at Paul-Metsa. And now, a word from our sponsors and more with Greg after that.
I'm Lucas and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Went great. Little to no pain yesterday. Surgery went great. Everything else. Went home, took a nap, woke up, and haven't really had any pain since. Everybody was super nice and talked you through every step of the way, and I barely had to ask any questions because they knew what to say. They filled it all in. For me, it'll just be snowmobiling's my big one. I try to do a lot of riding in the winter. I farm in the summer, so this year was a big difference where a couple of times I had to borrow somebody's helmet so I put my glasses on and ride because just the weather conditions, everything else, out there riding blind. So I'm really excited for that. It's well worth the money, and it's going to change my life for a long time, I'll tell you that.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
You're invited to the Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, open for another season for all your candy pleasure. They're located on Scenic Highway 61, 10 miles north of Duluth in Knife River. They're third and fourth generation candy makers using traditional copper kettles to make their caramels, fudge brittles, and chocolate-dipped hot air. When you visit Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, be sure and try their famous nutty ice cream bar. Tell them you heard it on Stars Over the Prairie. Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, located just 10 miles north of Duluth in Knife River.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing, go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
Gray Wolf Lodge, located on gorgeous Pelican Lake in beautiful Orr, is the great getaway in northern Minnesota. Featuring affordable, modernized cabins that rent by the week or even a few days, Gray Wolf Lodge is your place to treat the family or just yourself for a relaxing time away from it all. With great fishing, yoga classes, massage, boat rentals, a sandy beach, a common gathering area with a fire pit, and the gorgeous and rustic Gray Wolf Lodge, hosts John and Carol have thought of everything for your unforgettable stay. Give them a call at 1-800-840-9653 or go to graywolflodge.com to see all that they have to offer. Gray Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods.
Every day deserves a superior beer. Earth Rider Brewery's decorated brewers hand-select hops that lend citrus notes to the crisp and easy-drinking Superior Pale Ale. Visit Earth Rider Brewery's Cedar Lounge Tap Room on the Working Harbor in Superior for their award-winning flagship and seasonal brews on tap and to go. To find out much more about Earth Rider Brewery events, join the mailing list and locate Earth Rider Beer near you at earthrider.beer. Hold fast!
River City Records and Books, voted Best Record Store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge, and metal, to hip-hop, rap, and jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
Hey, this is Charlie Parr. You are listening to Stars Over the Prairie radio show with Paul Metsa on KDAL 610 AM or 103.9 on your FM dial.
Welcome back to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa. Speaking of Earth Rider, I am going to be doing 3 Wednesday nights playing over at the beautiful Cedar Lounge starting this coming Wednesday. And I will be bringing with the new addition to the band, the Tiltown Titanettes.
Nice.
Yes. Macy Orr, whose birthday it is today, and the lovely Oliver have been singing with me now for two or three times. They played with me at my regular Friday night new happy hour from 5:30 to 7:30 at Carmony's Irish Pub at 308 East Superior Street. But I was in this little shop about a little over 3 weeks ago, and I was hanging up posters for the Benefit for Ukraine. And this lovely young woman behind the counter said, "Are you a musician?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Well, I'm a musician too." I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm a singer." And it was just her and I in the shop. And I said, "Sing me something." And she sang like a bird, just this gorgeous songbird. And I always love having harmony singers on my songs. And I said, "Do you have anybody else you sing with?" "Yeah, my roommate, Oliver." "Really?" So they went to music school in Kansas. Macy and her boyfriend moved up to the UP a couple of years ago, ended up in Duluth last August. And so they live just maybe within a 5-minute distance from my house. So we've been getting together. We've got about 2 sets together. So Paul Metsa, the Tiltown Titanettes, not only every Friday at the Carmony's Irish Pub from 5:30 to 7:30, but making our Superior debut at the Cedar Lounge. Have you ever played at the Cedar, Chris?
I have announced and hosted at the Cedar Lounge. I've never actually picked up an instrument on the stage.
How about Greg? Have you done it, Greg Taberzi?
Yeah, done what? I'm sorry.
Played at the Cedar Lounge.
Played at the Cedar Lounge. Yes, I played there during one of the homegrown music festivals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Greg, let's go back to that. You grew up in Hibbing, so you were very aware of the history that town has. Let's just mention, for starters, some of the famous people besides Bob Dylan that came from Hibbing.
Okay, Bob.
Who are they, Greg?
Yeah, who are they? I should know, right?
You should know.
Kevin McHale, and I will have to say that I played drums in the band when Kevin McHale took the basketball team to the state tournament.
Cool.
Rudy Perpich and I played in the Capitol Rotunda drums when he was inaugurated. Gary Puckett from Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, which I love his pop music. I believe the drummer for REM was...
That's Bill Berry.
Bill Berry was from Hibbing. I don't know if he graduated from there or not.
I don't think he did, but I think he was born there.
Yeah.
And, of course, Gino Palucci.
Yeah, Gino Palucci. That's right.
And Roger Maris, I believe.
Roger Maris. This is interesting because a good friend of mine, Joe Seba, who was the guitarist in my band, his mother's sister was Roger Maris's wife.
Really?
I believe that's a connection. And so they would go see Roger Maris in Florida. He's a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, Joe is, because Roger played for the Cardinals. But then when he retired to Florida, and they would go down every year to see him in Florida.
Cool.
And they play at his golf tournament, his annual golf tournament in Fargo. So, yeah, it's interesting how these little small town connections, it's like you just, little brushes with everyone. With Dylan, everybody's got their little brush with Dylan. And in fact, my brush with Dylan is like an off brush here. His mother, B, used to outfit me with shoes at Feldman's department store in Hibbing. So I don't remember her, but I remember my shoes, my Buster Browns.
I heard Beattie was just a really lovely, warm, and gracious woman.
Yeah.
I actually somewhere she used to make great chocolate chip brownies that I have you can Google it online, Beattie Zimmerman's chocolate chip brownies, but I've got it somewhere at home. It's a bookmarker in one of my Dylan books. Let's talk a little bit about how treacherous was with your song Hell and High Water, how treacherous mining was back in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, I guess very much, mining is, to this day, it's very treacherous, like the coal miners and whatnot. I mean, boy.
Did you hear that little bit of Ranger accent
there?
Little
Ranger there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I must forgive me. I never worked in the mines. My dad was a liquor distributor, so I worked for him.
Okay.
And so I never worked in the mines.
Well, that could be a busy job out there in range.
I dropped an empty keg on my foot once, and I didn't have steel-toed boots, and that hurt. So that was a dangerous job. But I have a lot of respect for people that work in the mines.
There was a great, I don't know if the exhibit is still there at what's called the Minnesota Discovery Center.
Yeah.
Back when I first saw it was still called Iron World. That Rudy Perpich was the one that was single-handedly helped get that facility built in that beautiful amphitheater.
Right.
Oh my God! It's the Red Rocks of Minnesota. That beautiful amphitheater. I had the pleasure of playing there a couple of times and produced a few blues festivals there. But they're at the Discovery Center. They had a few years ago. They took a 2-year period from 1904 to 1905. And they had a list of, it was over 100, maybe close to 200 miners that had died during that period. And it was the kinds of deaths, it was like the worst kinds of deaths imaginable. Suffocated in a mine, got run over by an early crane, run over by horses, poisonous gas, losing arms and legs and limbs. And which is one of the reasons why the unions were started to form to protect these workers. And of course, when you were mentioned about how in the song about how the different cultures were combined because those miners came from so many different countries that the Pinkertons back then, the mining companies would send up to keep the unions from organizing. The Finns, my ancestors were the real radicals. They were, based on socialism and they were always about organizing, but they would never put two Finlanders together on the line. They'd always split them up between somebody, so they couldn't speak to one another. So, and I think there was a dozen languages being spoken.
It's really interesting. I just read something about where, the groups are so tight, the ethnic groups are so tight going down in the mines they would take it almost as a challenge to who could mine more rock, and so the companies would say, okay, let's put the Finns down there, and then now let's put the Italians down there, and they can battle each other out. See, they'd gain productivity by putting them down as bunches like that,
Well, as long as you brought that beautiful Gibson guitar, let's hear another song, Greg.
Sure. This one is off. I got about 10 recordings out now. This is off. I've been doing this for about 20 years now, recording, and this is off my first album, a song called little kind of a reggae off the tune called How Are You Gonna Get Up in the Morning When You Stay Out All Night Long?
Well, there's a I've always said there's a real nice connection between polka and reggae. I mean seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Just a little boom pop.
Yeah, exactly.
How you gonna get up in the morning when you stay out all night? When you stay out all night. Rooster crowing at the break of dawn. A lot of work here on the farm. Little darling, this carrying on isn't right. Little darling, tell the truth. Tell me who's been tickling you. Tiptoeing into our room in the light. And tell me how you gonna get up in the morning when you stay out all night. When you stay out all night. Darling, where you been? Coming home stumbling in. Coming home with that grin in your eyes. Don't you know it's killing me? Little darling, can't you see? Little darling, filling me with your lies. All your lies. How you gonna get up in the morning when you stay out all night? When you stay out all night. Tell me how you gonna get up in the morning when you stay out all night. When you stay out all night.
Very nice, Greg Tiburzi. Pronounce your last name again.
Tiburzi.
Tiburzi.
Or you can just say Tiburzi.
See, man, that was a beautiful song. That could have been my theme song in the mid 80s to late 80s. Craig, tell us a little bit about, because you grew up in Hibbing and you're a songwriter yourself, what has Bob Dylan's influence been on the young Greg and as Greg got older?
Well, it's from the library in Hibbing, there was one Bob Dylan record, and it was the Dylan album, which is probably his worst album.
The one from the early 70s?
From the early 70s with the psychedelic cover. I don't think he had any say in that. It was a kind of a contractual obligation type of a thing. But we brought it home from the library in a thick plastic case, and we'd listen to it in our stereo in our living room, and it was still Dylan. You know, he still had that unique voice and everything. So from there on, I think I enjoyed listening to Bob Dylan's music and knowing that he was from Hibbing. And it inspired a lot of us, inspired me to just pick up the guitar. And a friend and I used to just write lyrics, and we didn't even know guitar at the time. We played harmonica, which is pretty easy. And we would just sing these songs, but they were in kind of the Bob Dylan flavor, where you could sing them, and you didn't have to necessarily be on pitch. You didn't, you could have fun and put a lot of passion and energy into it. And so he always gave me that, that opportunity to be free in music, early on.
Very
be
cool.
yourself. So, yeah.
Very cool. What kind of, you got any shows coming up here in the Twin Ports?
I don't have any shows coming up to. I play a lot of assisted livings, and I do have that, but I don't know if they invite outsiders into the assisted livings. Otherwise, I'd have a list of them here. But I do play some shows up at the Larchmont Cottages as well, and Sir Ben's, and some areas around town. But I don't have any shows coming up.
Well, if people want to have the 2026 calendar, go see Greg probably on the porch at the Dillon Childhood Home up there at 517 3rd Avenue next May 24th.
Absolutely. And I will mention that I do have a website with all my recordings on there.
Please do.
And it is gregtiberzi.bandcamp.com, and I'll spell it for you. GregTib, as in boy, URZI at bandcamp.com. gregtiberzi at bandcamp.com. So,
and Greg, what do you do? You got a day gig? What do you do?
No, this is what I do. I was a graphic designer for years. And,
nice.
So I have been playing music for a while, so I'm very fortunate to be able to do this.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I need are you still doing any design?
No, I'm really not. I'm just, I can only create on one level. It's hard even on one level. So I'm two. It's like I just do a little bit of design here and there, but
cool.
Mainly it's just music. Yeah.
Well, it's really been lovely having you come into Stars Over the Prairie. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, we have Sylvia Burgess Toffness, who used to be on KDL back in the day, and she's got a ton of things going on. She's got a radio show. She's a herbalist, a naturalist, and she's got a lot of things to say. Also, the mother of the great Dessa Darling, who I'm a big fan of. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. Stay tuned, and I hope you're enjoying this wonderful Saturday. We're here every Saturday on KDL 610 AM 103.9 FM, Stars of the Prairie, with Paul Metsa.
I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight. And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight. And I wish I could see stars over the prairie.
Live. It's Stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award-winning songwriter, musician, author, and historian, Paul Metsa. Check out previous show podcasts at KDAL610.com. Now, here's Paul Metsa.
Welcome back to the wall. Welcome back to Stars Over the Prairie.
Pink Floyd? Did we turn into Pink
Yeah,
Floyd?
we turned into Pink Floyd. This is Paul Metsa at Stars Over the Prairie. I've got a radio show called Wall of Power Radio Hour in Minneapolis, and sometimes I forget what studio I'm in. But this morning we are in the Zenith City by the Unsalted Sea on Stars Over the Prairie with my wingman, Chris Allen. We played a little bit of Andre Segovia Beret in E minor because I took classical guitar lessons from our next guest's husband at the time. We will be speaking with Sylvia Burgess-Toffness. She has got a great history. She's got a lot of things going on. She raised to direct market grass-fed finished beef for years. She is deep into a master herbalist program. She's pursuing a University of Wisconsin Extension Master Naturalist course. She's a member of the American Herbalist Guild, the American Botanical Guild, and the North Country Herbalist Guild. She's also, we have another thing in common. She's got a radio show on Saturdays, and she's going to tell us about Deep Roots Radio and more. We've got several things in common, and I would like to welcome Sylvia to the show. Sylvia, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Paul. It's so good to talk to you.
Finally, we've been shooting those crazy emails back and forth. You know, Sylvia, it is Walt Whitman's birthday today, and I would like to welcome you to the show by reading a short Whitman poem called...
Very good.
Yeah, it's called The Barn, Farm Barn. And it goes like this. Through the ample open door of the peaceful country barn, a sunlit pasture field with cattle and horses feeding, and haze and vista, and the far horizon fading away. Welcome to the show, Sylvia, with a little Walt Whitman poetry.
Hey, I like that very, very much. In fact, on my radio show this morning, Deep Roots Radio, which goes from 9 to 9:30 up here out of the studios of WPCA in Amory, Wisconsin, this morning we were talking about an upcoming event that I'm organizing called the Apple River Farm Tour. And one of the things that the co-host and I were mentioning was just how distinctive this place is with those kinds of mists and haze rising from the countryside. So you hit it right on the spot.
Now, how long have you been, we're going to be talking, you've got an incredible history. We've got several things in common, and I'm a big fan, of course, your daughter, Dessa, just an amazing woman. We just had a short interview with her just a couple of weeks ago when she was playing up here at the Bent Paddle 10th anniversary, and she speaks so highly of you. In fact, she says you have a beautiful singing voice.
Well, once upon a time. Certainly music and especially singing was a big part of how I grew up because my father had an amazing voice. And so that just came down as being part of how I grew up and how my daughter Dessa grew up because song was so important to both of us.
Tell us about, you grew up in the Bronx in New York, correct?
Yes.
Wow.
So I grew up in the South Bronx.
Okay.
In the tenements. All of my childhood was spent there at a time when the tenements of the Bronx were so culturally diverse. So the kids in my classroom were from Mexico and Israel, from Greece and China, as well as the Caribbean. Lots of Jamaican kids, Irish, and Jewish.
Wow.
That was my class in elementary school because it was a neighborhood of immigrants. It was a neighborhood of first generation and second generation. And all of these families had many things in common, including making sure their kids got an education. So that
keep going.
Forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about your mother and father.
Well, Mom and Dad, they were born here in the United States on the mainland, let's say, because Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens and have been since before the 19th century. So it was my grandparents who came to the mainland from Puerto Rico when they were in their late teens, early 20s. And both my parents were born in Spanish Harlem in Manhattan. They pursued education. My family was actually a very large extended clan, I'll say, because when my grandmother came from Puerto Rico, it was with her her brothers, her sisters, and her mom. And they settled in Manhattan, and the children and grandchildren of those initial groups of people that came before World War I all stayed connected. So I grew up in a clan of 60 to 100 people.
Wow, great.
That established what kind of our own identity as far as the education that we were going to pursue, what was important to us. At a time when, there was as diverse as New York has always been, there's always been some cultural tension amongst groups. And so it was my family that really instilled the values of higher education. From the time I was 8 years old, my godfather would ask, "So what college are you going to?" And by the time I was 10, he would ask that question and follow it up with, "Why have you chosen that school?"
Wow.
So things were very deliberate, but things were a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So education was key, but family and having fun together and dancing and singing together was a major part of how I grew up. And so I brought those kinds of sensibilities with me to the upper Midwest when after a year's stint or year and a half stint at CBS Network Radio in New York City in Manhattan, I came out to the upper Midwest to KDAL.
Wow. So what year?
Reporter.
Yeah, what year was that, Sylvia?
73.
Very, very cool. So were you on both radio and television?
Yes. Yeah. So I anchored the noontime news at that time, and also did a magazine show with Duke Scorich.
Oh, yeah, Duke's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah. So Duke and I did a closer look where we would interview people coming through the town or interesting people about their travels and what they thought of the area.
Is any of that stuff still available online or on YouTube or anything?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
YouTube was not a thing.
Right, yeah, but now, there's a lot of archival stuff you can find on YouTube.
Sure. And the person who might know a bit about that is probably Duke.
Yeah. Well, I owe him a call.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he is related to, I've been playing with a harmonica player named Sonny Earl for, 26, 27 years now. And Sonny's wife and Duke are cousins. They've got that Serbian Iron Range background together.
That's right.
And I knew Duke, his family in other ways got to know more when I started playing with Sonny and got to know his wife, Lisa. So so how long were you doing the media KDL stuff in Duluth, Sylvia?
So I did that for only about a year and a half, and then decided to go to graduate school and do it full time. So back then, and I don't know if it was true of you too when you were growing up, Paul, back then you pretty much lived on practically nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just scrimped and saved, and there was no things like going on vacation, and there was no things like having a whole lot of clothes.
Right.
It was just making enough money to pay for the rent, and then for me it was paying for graduate school. And the other way that I financed graduate school was by becoming a teaching assistant.
Okay.
So I had a load of 3 full classes that I taught. English, grammar, and journalism, and composition. And so that really helped me finance my graduate school. And it's so funny, Paul, is that at that time, people were going to graduate school in order to get their MBA.
Right.
That was the way to make money. I got my graduate degree in Elizabethan stagecraft and journalism. That was my thing, the literature and Shakespeare, the Shakespearean craft and stagecraft. But, it has served me well. It has served me well. And so after that, I taught college. As a TA, I taught college at the University of Minnesota in Duluth. But then after that, I taught college at Wheeling College in West Virginia.
Okay.
Where I established their media communications program.
Well, and, Wheeling, West Virginia has had really over the years, there was an amazing, I can't remember the name of the radio show, but they were kind of really one of the big media places as far as a country music radio, and then eventually television came out of Wheeling, West Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, and I was pretty unaware of that. I'll be real honest with you. I was pretty much in the academic mind frame at that time, getting this coursework established. And it was after a while, I didn't stay in Wheeling very long because I really missed the upper Midwest. Mm-hmm. I missed the clear lakes, the clear streams, just the way that we live life in the northern parts of the United States. And so my husband and I hightailed it back to Minnesota, and I then started working for corporations at that time.
When did we're going to jump back a little bit. So where did you go to college originally?
I went to the City College of New York.
Okay.
That's where I got my BA, and then I got my MA at the University of Minnesota Duluth.
Cool. Now, did you, when you were growing up as a kid, teenager, did you get into the city often to enjoy all the, everything that the town's so great they had to name it twice? New York, New York. Did you get into the city much as a kid?
All the time.
Oh, fun.
Because my mom was of the mind that you need to enjoy and learn from where you are. So the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan was someplace that it felt like a regular hangout for me. I was there all the time.
Wow.
It just spoke to me, and I'll tell you, it made a big impression on me and how I ended up moving to the Upper Midwest. Because in the American Museum of Natural History, there are these rooms that are like huge dioramas that show life on the Serengeti Plain and life in this part of the world and life in that part of the world. And there I was, like a young kid living in a place of high buildings and sidewalks. And when I went into these diorama rooms and I looked at those, and I'm talking about dioramas that are, 12 feet, 15 feet tall.
Right.
Actually have real animals stuffed in them.
Right.
That's where I had a feeling of peace. That's where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to those wild, open spaces. And that stuck with me. That absolutely stuck with me. But my mom also had us going to all of the art museums. I mean, the Metropolitan Art and the Guggenheim and the Whitney. Those were all places for all the time. She made sure that we had those very cheap tickets to go to Broadway and off-Broadway performances. So we saw them.
Wow.
I mean, that was just part of how we grew up, was cheap seats to see things that were just, they were windows into the rest of the world.
Yes,
so
totally.
That was how I grew up. Now, I may have lived in the tenements of New York City, but my world was huge because of all the things that we were exposed to, and my mom made sure we were exposed to, my mom and dad. We got onto trains. We traveled by bus. It didn't matter what season. I recall being a little kid going to one of the museums. It may have been the American Museum of Natural History. I don't know. Being a little kid just bundled up to the teeth because it was freezing outside.
Sure.
And all the kids went, including the newest baby. It did not stop us. So we got.
Go ahead.
Really got a wonderful exposure to just everything.
My nephew Jake, who lives in Brooklyn and married a lovely woman from South Korea, and is in the film and TV business out there. They just had a lovely little daughter, Dea, who's about probably 2 years old, and she is fearless. and just in terms of getting on that subway and going into the city and seeing around. And I've seen little videos of her in the different parks out there. And when you're telling me about your childhood, I get almost like nostalgically jealous of, I mean, I loved growing up in northeastern Minnesota, but a big city, you know, I grew up in Virginia, the Queen City there in Range, I like that. Mm-hmm. But a big city for us was going down to Duluth. I mean, a big time for the Metsa family was going down to the Duluth Home and Boat Show.
Well, that's okay, though, you know.
Oh, it was great. It was great. But I mean, I just, when, cause I've been such a, fan, you know, the myth and the lore of New York City over the years. But, and I think, man, if I would have been there, you know, at your age to do that, how fun that would have been. So, but, obviously it, turned you into a very wise and groovy woman. Cause you got a lot going on, Sylvia.
I don't know about the wise part, but I think my parents with their, and my grandparents too, this was part of their life too, that notion of, hey, let's try something new. Hey, there's really nothing stopping us from seeing things and trying things and going places. You just get on a train, you get on a bus,
right?
Find a friend with a car. I think that was really ingrained in almost the entire family.
Well, good for your parents. Good for your parents and grandparents.
Excuse me?
I said I give props to your parents and your grandparents for instilling that sense of adventure.
Oh, yeah. It was marvelous. Well, you think about the grandparents. They're the ones who came to the mainland from Puerto Rico, so they jumped on boats.
Right.
And my mom, it was just, she had such curiosity and wonder about everything that there was never anything to stop us. I mean, pretty much throughout my life, her little mantra to me was, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can do just about anything if you're willing to fail and just get back up again.
My father's sense, he instilled in us two things when we were growing up. One thing was a sisu, which is the Finnish belief in yourself. It's the concept of inner strength. The best definition I've ever heard of it was several years ago when I was reading. It's a determination beyond all reason. And then my father grew up in a generation where it was Napoleon Hill and all the the self-made man, the Dale Carnegie's and those folks. And he always used to tell me and my brother and sister, whatever you can believe and conceive, you can achieve.
Yep, those are famous words. And I think the other kind of adage that came down through the family was from my godfather, which was, failure is no excuse for giving up.
Right.
And so, it's pretty much what you're talking about. You understand that you're not going to do everything.
Right.
You will fail. But are you willing to get back up?
Well, and we are going to be speaking with more about this, where Sylvia got into her Green Acres trip. Eddie Albert and Zsa Zsa Gabor moved to the farm after working in the corporate world and media and the rest, and raising a great family. And we're going to talk a little bit about her guitar playing first husband, Robert Wander Jr. So stay tuned to Stars Over the Prairie. We'll be back with the great Sylvia Burgess Toughness in just a little bit.
I got snow in my pockets, went down again head first. Lace drill bits to my point shoes, pirouette through the hardwood to pay dirt. Night falls, day breaks, time has a funny kind of violence, and I'm trying to keep in mind it can't leave you the way you find to. Good grief, I've heard people say it, what a phrase, what a state to be in, but I don't know where they go to get feeling.
And I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. I was sick of wearing glasses. I've had glasses since 3rd grade. Dealing with the nuisance of glasses has kind of reached that point of I just need to get LASIK. I was a little nervous, but knowing now what that process all entailed, I wouldn't have been nervous if I knew. Everybody's really nice here. Not a bad thing to say about anybody. Everybody's happy, and everybody here's nice. And I mean, it's day 1 post-op, and I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
You're invited to the Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, open for another season for all your candy pleasure. They're located on Scenic Highway 61, 10 miles north of Duluth in Knife River. They're 3rd and 4th generation candy makers using traditional copper kettles to make their caramels, fudge brittles, and chocolate-dipped hot air. When you visit Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, be sure and try their famous Nutty Ice Cream Bar. Tell them you heard it on Stars Over the Prairie. Great Lakes Candy Kitchen, located just 10 miles north of Duluth in Knife River.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing. Go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
Gray Wolf Lodge, located on gorgeous Pelican Lake in beautiful Orr, is the great getaway in northern Minnesota. Featuring affordable, modernized cabins that rent by the week or even a few days, Gray Wolf Lodge is your place to treat the family or just yourself for a relaxing time away from it all. With great fishing, yoga classes, massage, boat rentals, a sandy beach, a common gathering area with a fire pit, and the gorgeous and rustic Gray Wolf Lodge, hosts John and Carol have thought of everything for your unforgettable stay. Give them a call at 1-800-840-9653 or go to graywolflodge.com to see all that they have to offer. Gray Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the North Woods.
River City Records and Books, voted Best Record Store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge and metal, to hip-hop, rap and jazz, reggae and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
Hey, yo, how's she going? Don't you know, this is Steve Slokala, and you're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa, 610 AM, 103.9 FM on KDAL.
Kitty Genovese was walking home one night. Stranger on Queens Boulevard asked her for a light. She said no, and he struck her down. As 38 looked on, now those 38 still hear her cry, since Kitty has passed on. She ain't safe in a straight line, she ain't safe on the ground, she ain't safe on an airplane, she ain't safe on the ground. Because my grandma was once just a girl she's been.
All right, you are back with Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Metsa. That was a song I wrote and recorded at the Guthrie Theater years ago called Walking in a Woman's World, and I played it in honor of my guest, Sylvia Burgess-Toftness, and her lovely daughter, Dessa, a writer, rapper, broadcaster, and just really Renaissance woman. And I'm so happy to finally speak with Sylvia, because I was following Sylvia. I was following Dessa's different social media accounts, and she had mentioned you several years ago, and that you had a radio show, and she'd always be talking about her mom. And I said, I got to meet this woman, because she's got to be at least as fascinating as Dessa. And now I know where Dessa got all her mojo from. My guest, Sylvia Burgess-Toftness.
It's great to be on with you, Paul. It really is. And I'm so glad that you have that connection with Dessa as well.
Oh, I've been following her, for years. And Minneapolis, as she's probably told you, is such really a tight and supportive music community that's really welcomed everybody that plays in any genre that's just trying to get their art and their music going and their business going. It's a very supportive community of one another. And and besides Dessa's art, the thing I'm really amazed with her is she is such a great businesswoman.
And she's a great collaborator.
Yeah.
She's very creative. She pulls other people in so that they all can succeed. She has a generous nature and a good heart, as well as being as talented as she is. So it's wonderful to have been able to be with her, because I'm her mom, from the very beginning, and to watch her grow.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of glad that I'm no longer getting emails from her or phone calls that say, "Hey, Mom, I'm going on at midnight. Can you be there?" And of course I would be. Going to the turf club or something.
Yeah.
But you gotta show up. You got to show up.
Oh, yeah. Well, my mother was my biggest fan. I wouldn't have got through life or this crazy music business without her. So bless the both of you. Now, I'm going to jump back a little bit, because our another connection is, of course, Robert Wander Jr. And,
right.
And so when you were... I'll tell you how this all came about. Less than a couple of years ago, I went to the Dessa show at the Minnesota Orchestra at Orchestra Hall, and she had recently released her great book, My Own Devices. And the guy in front of me on the set break had bought a book for himself and then purchased 3 books. And he told the lady at the merch counter, he said, "Give these next 3 books to the next 3 people in line." Well, I was the first person in line, so I got the book, and I think Dessa had mentioned in the first set that her father was there and he was a classical guitar player.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm just kind of, before the second set starts, and phenomenal show, by the way, I'm paging through and I see Robert Wander, and I go, geez, I used to study guitar with a guy named Robert Wander, and then the part of the book was he was involved with gliders. And the last thing I heard about Robert Wander, because I was studying with Bob in about 1976, the last I heard he was making canoes. And so I'm going to myself, well, what is a glider but a canoe with wings? And then I kind of put it together that I had actually studied guitar with Dessa's dad, your first husband. So it was a crazy time. Now, when you had mentioned that you had studied Elizabethan art and poetry and all that, was that how you met Robert Wander, who played lute at the time? That's Metsa's guess here.
Yeah, a little bit, because actually I was in graduate school and, going through the master's program with a focus on Elizabethan stagecraft.
Right.
And I wanted to have an instrument that I could play, because I'm not a big player of instruments, but I wanted something that I could play and accompany myself with some of the Elizabethan music that was used in the plays. And so I went to a local music store, Holly's Music.
Sure, First Street.
Yep, and I purchased an auto harp. And it needed to be tuned up. And so I purchased it, left it at the store, came back, and who was the tuner? None other than Bob Wander.
Funny.
And that was it.
You know, it's funny you should mention that just now, because yesterday there's a guy named from my hometown. His name's Mark Escala, and he works on all my guitars. Do you know Mark?
Yeah, I do. Very well.
This is how small this world is. So I was out. I brought a guitar for him to where he works on all my guitars, and he said, "You've got to get back when you get back to Duluth. You've got to see the refurbished Alhambra Theater, the old 1913 vaudeville theater that Bob Boone from the Duluth Reader just rehabbed." Mark was the main carpenter on that. But I love sitting in his little, he's got a beautiful old Martin guitar, so I asked if I could play that. I'd been following him on Facebook. And so I was looking around at all his instruments, and I said, geez, you know, I was playing a banjo he had, because back when I was in high school, man, I was playing dulcimer, banjo, auto harp. I thought I was going to be Joni Mitchell for the, you know, that was my goal back then. And so I said to Mark, I said, hey, man, would you be able to tune my auto harp? It's funny you bring it up. And then he said to me, he goes, I thought you were a friend of mine.
Oh, I know. All those strings. Yep.
So anyway, so tell us, so what happened there? So he tuned the auto harp and
that was the end of the story. I mean, we just clicked from then on.
Wow.
And got married and lived in Duluth until I got a job teaching in West Virginia, and then we moved there.
Were you living, because I took a lesson or two from Bob, and actually I did it through UMD, and I did a song in a couple of lessons in the classroom, but then I'd go to that nice, beautiful Redstone building right off Masaba Avenue. Is that where you...
Munger Terrace.
That's exactly it.
Yep, that's it.
I was telling Dessa how hip her dad was. I remember I'd go in. He would be wearing like a really cool suit coat with the leather elbow pads, and smoking a pipe, playing classical guitar. And I said, "Man, this guy is like maybe the first beatnik I know."
That was a while ago. Yes.
Oh yeah. Will you please give Bob my best? I told Dessa too. I said my whole right hand technique came from Robert Wander, and
he was excellent, absolutely excellent.
Does he still play?
You know, I don't believe so.
Oh man!
As you had mentioned a little earlier, he has many talents, and he's also quite adventurous. So he succeeded in building his own glider.
Wow.
I guess he got into canoes. He became a very well-known writer about gliding.
Really?
Had his own publishing company. Yeah.
Wow. So we see Dessa took her dad's lead in organizing business and becoming the CEO of a record company and more. Well, you went there. Now, when did you take the left turn and get into all your natural, your herbalist stuff, and and tell us about the herbal safari you do, and it's all kind of tied in your Deep Roots Radio, because you tie it all into one beautiful package every Saturday morning at 9 to 9:30. And let's see, what is it? Is it WPCA Radio, 93.1 FM if you're in Wisconsin, or stream it, I'm sure, at WPCAradio.org. So when did you get into that whole world, Sylvia?
Well, after leaving West Virginia, where I was putting together a program for mass communications, we left there, I think, in 76. We came back to the upper Midwest, and I began a series of jobs in public relations. So I was with Honeywell for 12 years. Along the way, I also was the communications person for the Stillwater School District, for the St. Paul Police Department. And I was a consultant for many years with a small firm, as well as being on my own, and with specializing in crisis communications, as well as in brand development. So when I was working with the St. Paul Police Department, that was, every single day. It was news meetings with the media. They'd come into my office. We'd do whatever needed to be done as far as updates. And then I was out at every single major crime.
Who was the mayor back then of St. Paul?
Oh, jeepers. I can remember the chief was Chief Finney.
How about,
it was
not Norm Coleman, was it?
It was Norm Coleman.
Yeah, I actually, Norm got me a gig opening up for the very last Clinton rally in '92 when Norm was working for Skip Humphrey in the Attorney General's office. And then when Norm called me when he was running for Mayor of St. Paul, he called me, and I played his first benefit at O'Gara's back when he was back when Norm was a good Democrat. He traded sides there at some point and slipped over to the dark side. He's still a friend of mine, but so that's my kind of St. Paul political connection. But anyway, so keep going. And how did you then finally end up on the farm?
Well, it was a gradual thing, but it's a winding road, as many of us have. And so I was doing a lot of corporate work. Eventually worked for a mid-sized, I guess, philanthropy right there, the Northwest Area Foundation. And in that time, while I was still with the police department, I met my current husband, Dave Toffness, who was a country boy out here in Amory, Wisconsin. So there began the connection with this part of the upper Midwest.
Right.
Eventually, we bought a farm. We had lived on the lake, and Dave says, I think we need to get a farm. He had a small farm previously, hobby farm. I was getting ready to move to another corporate gig, but we did get the farm that we currently have, 72 acres.
Nice.
And in the years leading up to this, actually, when I was a consultant on my own, I was doing public relations for organic food and product businesses as well as nonprofits. And that's where I got my feet into the whole idea of, wow, what is this organic stuff and how does this work? And I was able to travel the country and visit farms that were thousands of acres doing everything in a certified organic manner. I got to know a lot of people and worked actually with, I was just one cog, one of 10,000 cogs in a big wheel that got the Organic Foods Act passed in 1989.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, so that was my entry into the whole notion of farms and farming. Not that I was a farmer, but that I became familiar with the people who actually do this for a living. But then, I met my husband, and it was like, oh, he wants to move to a farm now. We were living on a lake, and it made sense for us to move. Lake property takes a lot of upkeep. The kids were grown and gone. And a friend of his actually said, hey, you guys want to buy the farm, our farm here? And so we did. That was, 15, 16 years ago. And I said, if we're going to have a farm, then there's got to be something growing on it.
Right.
And we put cattle on here. Dave and I did actually take a class that was offered by the Land Stewardship Project called Farm Beginnings, where you actually learn more about how to think about farming than how to plant a seed. The whole thing is not about how to plant a seed or raise an animal, but the business of farming.
Right.
The attitude of farming. The big, massive challenges of farming. But we had cattle, and I ended up, we entered into farming at a time when most people are retiring. Right. And so we knew that this was going to be a platform for conversations and education. And the cattle was really about being legitimate. But I ended up having, a herd of 40 cattle, and I did direct marketing for several years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So who, it's, when I think about it, when I started reading about what you were doing with the beef, the grass-fed beef, who actually ends that particular cow's life before you do what you have to do to get it to market? That wasn't you,
Certainly.
Was it?
No, it could not be me.
No.
Because we were going to be selling this beef to real customers who are used to having things that are, plastic wrapped and shrink wrapped and weighed and well labeled. And in order to do that, we really had to go to a processor.
Right.
That could do that for us, that was USDA licensed. And we were very fortunate in having one that was just, up the road. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, because I just, when I was thinking about it, and, I've been eating, I'm a meat eater. I've been eating meat all my life. And, but my mother, who's, her first name was Margaret, but they called her Bessie, and she had a cow named Bessie, a pet cow, and because she kind of grew up around a farm. And Bessie, one day when Mom was about second grade, Bessie followed Bess to school, and so I mean, the one part I was thinking about, I think processing was maybe the word I was looking for, but I mean, there's no way that you can't develop feelings for these beautiful animals while you're raising them, knowing what you're raising them for.
Yeah, you care for them a lot.
Yeah.
And you recognize them, and you work really hard to make sure that they have good grass in front of themselves, that the water is running, that you do fly control. You do develop, I guess, a real affection, let's say, for the fact that these animals depend on you to a great extent.
Yeah.
And I always viewed my farming as a blessing and a gift of stewardship.
Yeah.
My husband, he made a point of making this gift possible for me by doing some of the machine work and the fencing. I took care of the cattle. And I took care of all the marketing. Because as I said, we established this farm as a teaching and learning platform, so we had hundreds of visitors come a year.
Right.
To take pasture walks where we would be given the opportunity to explain why we did what we did. Why did we do grass-fed beef farming? How did it affect the land? How did it affect the animal? How does it affect the beef?
How long? What is the life expectancy of a cow?
Well, for us, in order to get our cattle to market weight and condition, it was 30 months.
Okay.
In the conventional world, where they're fed a lot of grain to fatten them quickly, their life might be 14 months, 16 months.
Wow.
Because it fattens them that much faster.
I knew. Now, if it wasn't going to end up on somebody's plate, how long would the cow live?
Oh, my goodness. 15 years?
Wow.
15 years? 20 years?
Wow.
If you treat them well, the cow will continue to calf well past her 10th birthday.
Wow. I knew I would be learning things today when I spoke with my guest, Sylvia Burgess-Toftness. Now, how did
we made the turn.
Yeah, let's take a turn now into, eventually we're going to end up in the jungles of herbal safari. Tell us how that started.
Well, the thing was that after just a couple of years of rotating my cattle from field to field in order for them to get fresh grass, I took a look at their pasture, and I thought, what is that's growing there? And I noticed that there were waves of different kinds of blossoms and plants as the season progressed. And I got frustrated with myself for not knowing what I was looking at, so I began to study the grasses and the herbs and the various plants. And that's where my study of herbalism began. It was taking a look at that relationship of the cattle to the land, because the land and the forage changed tremendously with rotational grazing. We had greater diversity of plant life. And that's how my studies began. And I began to take online courses. I began studying a lot of books. And one of the things that an early decision I made was to really stick to the books that were written by clinical herbalists that had at least 20 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much stuff out there right now, I wouldn't trust a fraction of it.
Right.
So I took my first online course with the person who's called the godmother of herbalism, Rosemary Gladstar. I have an extensive library of books, as you might imagine, and my study intensified with COVID, actually, because Dave and I are more advanced in age, and I thought, I don't want this thing killing us.
Right.
So I started really putting my day, I would do at least 4 hours of study a day, trying to determine what can I do to help us as we try to progress through this time. Both of us got COVID. It was pretty bad, but I think the advice I got from the teachers that were most familiar with viral infections helped us to avoid the respiratory problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my studies continued even more. So now I'm involved in a master diploma program at the Midwest School of Herbal Studies, which is in Plymouth, Minnesota.
Really? Now, if people want to come down, give us website addresses and things. If people are listening and say, geez, I want to learn more about this, I want to go visit Sylvia and Dave and take a herbal safari, how can they track that down?
Easily, it's at a website called herbalsafari.com. And therein I describe what an herbal safari is, which is a guided discovery walk, because my intention is for people to really see that there are a lot of good plants and shrubs and trees growing in their own backyard.
Yeah, no. And you know what? I went out with a woman for several years. She's still a very good friend of mine, whose father studied with Aldo Leopold. And Aldo he was born in Iowa, of course, spent a lot of time in Wisconsin. But it's interesting how really kind of in a way, I get a feeling just from what you're talking about and what's going on in Wisconsin, that it was people like Aldo Leopold that really brought this whole connection to nature, at least in the, the last century, to the fore. The people like you are actually living every day, as part of a participant and a teacher for these things.
Yeah, and I think that you've hit it on the head. Where I live right now is actually a treasure trove of small regenerative farms, very good larger farms that are working very hard to protect the watershed, and herbalists. We seem to be a concentration here right in the Amory, Clear Lake area, Polk County, Wisconsin. And that's one of the reasons why I took up that charge to put on the Apple River Farm Tour that's coming up July 12th. Because 14 of those farms are part of this day-long opportunity to tour farms, to see how it is that they work and to really enjoy the day. So on that day, July 12th, from 10 to 5, I'll be doing mini herb walks. There's another herbalist who's actually been in the field doing herbalism for like 40 years, and she has a whole farm where she develops herbal salves and tinctures and various kinds of tonics for sale. But there are so many farms here, and I'm hoping that people come. They can find out about it by going to my website, herbalsafari.com, and clicking on the nav bar that says Apple River Farm Tour.
Wow.
And I really hope they'll come.
Sylvia, this has been so delightful. I was actually doing my weekly gig up here at Carmody's Pub, and there was a meeting of co-ops from around the country that had a meeting in town. So some of the people, some were from Lincoln, Nebraska, some were from Minneapolis, that came down and stopped in, and which is the whole other the right hand to the left hand. If the left hand is organic gardening, the right hand is bringing that to market. And of course, there was no greater place than Minneapolis, Minnesota, but since the late 60s, early 70s,
that's right,
in terms of co-ops. Hey, my dream, Sylvia, is to get you and your lovely daughter, Dessa, in a room together with a pitcher of martinis, and I would like to tape that conversation because I think there's more to the story.
Oh, it would be so much. I'd love it.
We are going to plan on that. Well, thanks, Sylvia. Give my best to Dave. I look forward to meeting you in person. Of course, give my best to Bob Wander, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much, Paul. This has been a blast. I hope we get to do it again.
For sure, we will. Thanks for listening to Stars Over the Prairie. Like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.
I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.